CENTER Maine has been partnering with the-maine-monitor to bring you stories from journalists with this nonprofit independent publication. We are featuring one of their stories each Monday. Today, we're talking about recovery resources. School districts in Aroostook County are asking for funding from the Maine Recovery Council to launch a high school program for students in recovery from substance use. According to the Association of Recovery Schools, there are 43 of these programs in the U.S., including 5 in Massachusetts. This program would be the first of its kind in Maine and would be the first residential program in the country. Emily Bader is a healthcare reporter for the-maine-monitor, which published a story on the proposal over the weekend. Emily, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So first off, who would this serve here in Maine?
Yeah, so the proposal would be for 8 students. It would at first be students from the St. John Valley, and then with the possibility to open it to all of Aroostook County. But these would be high school students who are in recovery from substance use disorder.
So why did this proposal come about, and where does the funding for it come from?
Yeah, so the proposal comes from MSAD 27, which is based in Fort Kent. And this started about 2 years ago. One of the teachers in the alternative schooling program there was doing research for her doctoral thesis, and she was looking into finding resources for students with substance use disorder and happened upon this idea of a recovery high school. And she thought that sounds like exactly what we need. And she brought it to Peter Karen, who also is in the alternative schooling program. And they sort of ran with it and developed this concept over the past 2 years. And they're asking the Maine Recovery Council, which controls half of Maine's about $230 million in opioid settlement funds. They're in charge of distributing half of that money. And they're asking them for about $582,000 to start a 3-year pilot program.
From your reporting, why is this needed in Maine?
There are limited resources for substance use disorder in Aroostook County and particularly in St. John Valley. And if you're under the age of 18, these resources are even more limited. A lot of treatment providers may not have the capacity to serve kids under the age of 18. Recovery centers may also not be set up. There's only 3 in the entire county, and if you're not close to any of them, it could be difficult to even get to. So that's one reason. There's just a lack of resources. The other is that we know from years and years of research that a lot of adults with substance use disorder start using drugs and alcohol when they're teenagers. And these teachers at MSAD 27 and the Valley Unified Education Service Center told me that they see it all the time. And, that's sometimes students coming to them or they just observe it, but they know that this is something that happens in schools. And, kids are young, they're experimenting, their peers are perhaps pressuring them, or they just want to fit in, or they're looking for self-medicating. For whatever reason, it exists. And they also know from experience that if they do find treatment and get into recovery, returning to a traditional high school setting can be really difficult and can put them at risk for relapse.
So what's the timeline for this program launching?
Well, they want to start it by this fall. But if the Maine Recovery Council does not fund them, they will have to kind of go back to the drawing board on that. They've asked the Attorney General if he would offer some of his 20% of the opioid settlement funds. They're also seeking legislative solutions, but because the per pupil cost is higher than a traditional school, they have more funding needs. And so ideally, if the Recovery Council approves the funding at their next meeting in mid-March, they may be able to still start it by this fall. Otherwise, we'll have to come back and see what they're able to figure out.
Interesting stuff. Emily Bader, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
You can read much more at the-maine-monitor.org.